Big us, everyone. Thanks for everyone's support for the Kyokushin Shuffle. And here we are again, a very special guest who's been very, very grateful for his time. He was a guest on last year. This time we're going to be talking about his coaching angle and where things are at. So, ladies and gentlemen, none other than Sensei Sam Greco. Sam, how are you? How are you going?
Well, mate, how are you? Yeah, look, I'm good. In quarantine currently. Got back from the States. Got another 5 or 6 days left, and we're back to Melbourne.
Well, I've been following you on social media, as most of us do, and you're doing it a hell of an effort to maintain your, energy up. And happy birthday for you the other day.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Much appreciated.
Yeah, there were some really cool messages from a lot of people, which is, and the cake landed in your hotel room, and you share a birthday with your family members. So yeah, what a moment we're going through here. Hey.
Yeah, look, it's a tough time for everyone, not just for myself. But if I have to talk on a personal level, yeah, it was quite hard. Being away from your family for so long, and then trying to share a memorable day such as your birthday. But I was fortunate enough to do a virtual dinner with them, which was quite good. So we had good times. You sort of make the best of a shit situation, if that makes sense.
Certainly. Well, Sam, let's get stuck in. Appreciate your time. Thank you for being on the show again. And again, the angle here, I've got multiple questions that have been running through my head all day when I get a chance to talk to you, and I appreciate it. So, Sam, one of the starting points is on this level of Forever the Coach is obviously your transition of what's been, your professional career for so long across so many different disciplines, but in just taking a bit of a rewind back to your ways as you were a professional fighter with your coaches back then, I guess in putting that quickly, did you get to a point where you were appointing your coaches on your level to help support you, or were you a part of a team or a group that already had that foundation set for you?
No, look, it's funny you say that. I was always one that used to strive for more. What I had was never enough, because I always believed development never ever stops. The learning never ever stops. And I just think if you had a trainer, or if I had a trainer that thought he knew it all, it was time for me to move on. I think trainers, even today, it doesn't matter your expertise, you still evolve. And if you don't evolve with your current students, you're not doing them justice. So my trainers were quite good. They were open to suggestions, and that was the good thing about it. We tried it. If it worked, great. If it didn't, we moved on. But they also came back with ideas, irrespective of how traditional my trainers were through, Kyokushin. It didn't matter. I was very fortunate to have trainers that gave you the opportunity to lead the way to a certain degree, but then give their 2 cents worth, which was quite good. So very I think that's the only way to grow.
Yeah. Now, see, you've angled it well because of your Kyokushin karate martial arts background. In that era, it was, hard work and pushing through, and the only way was that way, right? And with that being said, when you would see yourself up against the other best fighters in the world, were there bits and pieces of you as an athlete, as a karateka, that was starting to take bits and pieces? Because I reference it in the manner of how lads like us can watch YouTube now, gentlemen like yourself back in the 80s as such, we're referencing off, people or traveling or doing what you could.
No, look, I think, and I'm sort of blowing my own trumpet here, but this is probably the point of my success, is that I constantly evolved. I constantly wanted to know what Patrick Pinto was doing. I constantly wanted to know what Ademir da Costa was doing. I constantly wanted to know with Andy Hug and Michael Thompson. I wanted to know what these guys were doing, what made them different, what gave them the edge. And people go into hiding and they think, oh, what I'm doing is enough and that's all I'm going to do. But the truth of the matter is, if you don't make connection with the rest of the world and what the rest of the world is doing and how they're evolving, you're going to be left behind. And even though as a full contact karate person, it was as heavyweight, it was just straight down the line, as hard as you can kick. But I learned even as a heavyweight to cut angles too, and start learning about cutting angles. And that's just to give you an example. But I learned a lot from other people.
Yeah. Yeah, and
You
because
know?
when you were so from taking the karate angle onto the head punches, the the elite creme de la creme in the world, where were you seeing your need to improve, and who did someone tap you on the shoulder, or were you all part of a team that was starting to work on, hey, this is where we're going to evolve with you as the world champion to be?
I, from what I can remember, I remember sitting down, but the most important coaches would tell you where your weaknesses are and how to improve them. And I knew for me, and this is no disrespect to any instructor that I've had in the past or any instructor that I've trained in the past in Australia, but my time was done here in Australia. My evolution was sort of capped. And that was the unfortunate, because it's no good being the top dog. I'm going to state this. It's no good being the top dog in your gym. You get nowhere. You need to be challenged every single day. And for me to be challenged and to accept that challenge, I had to head off overseas.
Yeah.
And, and look at other matters and look at other dojos and look at other schools and other fighters and sort of mix it with the best. I'm not saying what I learned in Australia was worthless. It was worth everything. It's, in fact, it's the strength. It's my backbone to where I am today.
Understood.
So I salute all my instructors and fellow students that have helped me throughout the way. But it was time for me to move on. But the unfortunate thing was there was that stigma attached in my era that, oh no, you can't go anywhere. This is it. You have to stay with Kyokushin, and but what I just found was we weren't evolving. So that's why I took off. That was one of the key reasons why I took off.
No, you've just said it well there, Sensei. All good, and all respect to you with it, because you keep that professionalism with it every time we chat, and it's refreshing to hear again, because we have these platforms to keep hearing it from you, because have a look at the evolution of what's happening now, and you're seeing it every second of the day with your fighters and so forth, but we'll get to them in a minute. But so when you're starting to see all these other athletes, again, the best of the best, Andy, Peter Ertz, you name them, right? And you're consistently with them daily on those tours and on those events, and you're consistently competing against them. So your evolving of your fight game would have just been, all of you would have just had to adjust quickly, improve better than anyone else in the world, right?
Well, the truth of the matter is, to answer that question, if you didn't evolve, you got your head punched in. That was all there is. So, you really ask questions. I was never afraid of it. We mix it with these guys in and out of the ring. And I think what we did outside the ring was probably more important than what we did in the ring. In the ring was just the final product.
Yeah. See, and that's the thing, you guys, how did you train when you were away on the road? Did you train individually, like with all the different competitors around each other? It kind of reminds me of the tennis side of things. Like you're on that court, you're on that court, have a little peek. How did that go back then?
It was quite interesting to say that. Andy and we trained together all the way through, along with a few other Japanese fighters. But that was it. That was our small little niche group. We knew that one day we were going to fight each other, and it was a given. But it never deterred us from showing techniques to each other. I knew Andy's strengths in and out. I knew Michael Thompson's strengths in and out, but he knew mine too. So you couldn't hide any of those. Not when you're with each other 24/7 and training, early mornings and late afternoons and then teaching. It's pretty hard to hide anything. So we were fortunate that we were a group. We were fortunate that we were professional in our matters in many more ways than one, but also fortunate to share the ring together and fight each other. So that in itself is an honor, because it really became a chess game.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, those times of, were you sitting in your room watching tape back then when you were competing? Let's move into some of the other disciplines that were fortunate to go in. You did MMA, you did wrestling. Were you someone that watched tape, Sensei, or were you someone that scouted, took notes, watched other fights, immersed yourself in, that type of thing?
No, I'll be honest with you. I am one who studies, watches footage, go out of my way to purchase footage of different fighters and different fights that are of interest to me. I constantly believe that if I did stop watching any footage or any form of, so you never stop learning. So constantly just keep going, keep watching, keep viewing different fights, keep training with different people, and just learn, constantly learn. You'll make your own strengths out of everything, that you learn.
Yeah. And that just continues on, doesn't it? So where the angle of fighting sits is there, then you would have had a thing called strength and conditioning, and then another thing called nutrition. That is just 101 now in Jimmy Crute's game and everyone else. And yours, how were you being, I guess, mentored as such? Was it based on you? Was it based on your, judgment?
You're talking about me growing up, and well, personally, I was definitely ahead of my time. I could categorically say that. Basically, all kettlebell stuff. I think I mentioned in one of my last podcasts with you that, talk about kettlebell strengths and sprints and plyometrics. I was doing those in the late 80s, early 90s. Yeah. That's how far ahead I was. I managed to, get good track and field coaches. They taught me all about that, taught me about explosive movement. That's why, as a heavyweight, I was always very explosive on my toes. In terms of nutrition, I was fortunate enough to have people who understood the game better than what I ever would, and guided me. Guided me about food and refueling. That whole scenario: you are what you eat. And how important is it? You can train like an absolute beast and have the best lead up to a fight, but if you don't eat well, it's like having a Ferrari and putting the cheapest fuel in there. Exactly. It's totally impossible. It just doesn't run right. So look, I was fortunate to have these individuals around me. Now, not by luck. It wasn't by luck. It was purely me sourcing them. And word of mouth and trialing it. So yes, I did spend a bit of money, but it was probably the most rewarding expense that I ever had, because it took me where I needed to be.
Yeah, it's in an investment conversation, isn't it? You're investing in your personal growth, development, and all things that made you work and function at your premium. Yeah, indeed. Sensei, you got to see so much in your time, and again, go for it. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say. Yes. I was just going to say, for those out there who are listening too, don't neglect that sort of stuff. These are the 1%ers that make 100% at the end of the day, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Don't neglect your diet. Don't neglect the food that you're eating. Don't neglect your rest, your sleep. All this stuff is super, super important. It actually, believe it or not, it actually makes up. It makes up and puts you on that pedestal exactly where you need to be at the end of the day. If you treat it lightly, don't expect a great result.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah, good tips, good points. I appreciate that, Coach. And Sensei, so what I was gesturing there was, with what you've seen and how much you've been around. And again, for those that, listen to my other podcasts, and Sam's always giving his time to many other podcasts as well. But this one with the coaching side, it up here, and you're a very big advocate of, you're talking to corporates around the world with MMA Fighter and so forth. How important is this as well in your level of in coaching now as well with the athletes you're dealing with?
It's super, super important. There's no two ways about it. The majority of people that come through the ranks, the majority of fighters that come through the ranks, do come through on a physical state. That is a key element. But your mental state, your mental strength is predominantly, it's got to be in a better position than what you are physically.
Right.
Because I've said this before, during a fight, I mean, you can prepare 100% mentally for it, physically for it. But if you're not 100% mentally prepared, you'll break down. Physically, you'll break down. It's a given, you know? And the mind is so powerful, but yet again, so underestimated. My fight career, throughout my coaching career, throughout my work, work career, through business. If you know, look at this. I'm in quarantine right at the moment. It's the ugliest place you want to be in, by yourself, 14 days. And if you're not mentally strong, and if you don't keep yourself mentally occupied, and keep feeding yourself that positiveness that it's the time's going to come, that day's going to come, that day's going to come, mate, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here talking to you today. So the strength of the mind is so underestimated. And the top athletes around the world, especially, you know, UFC, a lot of the top grade UFC, whether it be glory fighters, whether it be Bellator, PFL, whoever it may be, karate, you know, you always find the strongest doesn't always win, but the strong mind does capitalize at the end of the day. Yeah. You know, it's your will not to give up. It's your will to take your body through life or death to the finish line at all costs. Simple.
Yeah. Well, simple.
You know the old saying, who wants it more? Yeah, I always say, even my guys, go out and enjoy yourself. But I said, hey, who wants it more, you or him? So,
well, yeah, you brought something up that I think is important, and you're the perfect candidate to preach it. And you've just said it then, who wants it more, right? You know, so with respect of, you know, the generations of you coming through with your level of training in the 80s, 90s, and doing what you did, to the lads like myself in the 2000s and this era, how are you seeing, should we be harder, we meaning teachers and coaches, and harder meaning not in a put pressure, just harder in the way we should be training? Is there something that you feel or that you're seeing that this generation as such in all martial arts that you're seeing that we need to reinforce a little bit more on?
I think one thing you guys should never let go of is discipline, right? I think that's the key factor to keeping someone humble. And I think Kyokushin through the ages is just getting better and better. Yeah. One thing I still believe that should probably change in the current status of teaching is probably the mentality of coaches is actually getting them to look outside the square, getting them to look outside the square with themselves and also with their students in the direction they're going. What works for one doesn't necessarily work for the other. I think a coach needs to take that individual as one person, not as a group. You know, so when you advise someone, you've got to advise that individual. You've got to, you know, even with my guys, you know, I sit down there and write their strengths, their weaknesses. I talk about their mental strength. I talk about categorically what they need to do to improve, you know, how they can sharpen up what they're doing well now, they can also sharpen it up. Any other techniques that I think that they could possibly do, we try, because knowledge is so powerful. But given as a coach, if I don't go out and source that stuff, if I'm not one to, you know, to allow information, an influx of information to come in for me to absorb and process, I'm doing my fighter an injustice. Yeah. So I think we've got to be more laterally minded as coaches. I think the hard times have changed, but discipline shouldn't change. That should be even harder. Discipline should always be harder, because a disciplined student will get there. Yeah. But in terms of the work ethics, in terms of, you know, got to go hard is not always the best thing. You know, we've got to work smarter, not harder. And, you know, the way the sports evolved, whether it be karate, MMA, kickboxing, Muay Thai, there's a science involved now. You know, and unless you're prepared to get behind it and understand it, your student's going to be where he was 10 years ago. And that's the truth. And that's not a kick in the ass to the instructors, but that's just saying, hey, there's a real world out there today. We're not going back in the 2000s. We're in the 2010. We're in the 20s now, and you have to evolve. You know, and just one thing. You know, sometimes instructors don't want to evolve because there's a lot of pride there. But I think they need to put that pride aside. If they're so interested in their student or their students or their fighters, I think it's important for them to put down their guard and say, you know what, okay, where are we going from here?
Yeah.
Let's have a look together. You know, everyone grows as a family because Kyokushin, you know, your dojo, you are a family, for God's sake. You know, even though you're a group of individuals in there striving for excellence, you're still a fucking family. Simple. There's no two ways about it.
No, I appreciate your points on that, and that's why we got you on. You know, you raised some really cool points. So, Sensei, how are you going now? Full-time coach as such, you know, family man, and all these beautiful things, and now the hat's on the different side now, man. You know, how's it going for you in that respect?
Look, I think the greatest thing about where I am today is the challenge.
Right.
You know, it's different. You know, it still runs sort of similar course, but it's different.
Yeah.
You know, we're at the peak level. UFC at the moment, I'm coaching UFC fighters and kickboxers, but we're at the pinnacle. You know, that's how the UFC have got a monopoly on everything, and very fortunate to be part of that limelight with my fighters. But the truth of the matter is, I say my girls, whichever. So, you know, I do see a little bit of me in most of my fighters.
Yeah.
But you know, it's exciting. But all I want to wish them is, or I always wish my guys always the best. And I wanted to be successful. You know, I wanted to have a business mind in the game. You know, you don't have to wait to have a business mind when you get out of fighting into business. You have a business mind while you're in fighting, because the truth of the matter is, the days are gone where it's just fighting. It's entertainment these days. You know, you've got to have a gimmick. You know, you've got to be a showman. You know, you've got to be an excellent technician. You've got to, you know, you've got to be, a tough fighter. You need to be a smart fighter. You need to be a fast fighter, depending on where you're fighting. So, I try to shine the light on all those things. And it's not about you coming training, you know, doing 8-10 sessions a week. It's about you working on yourself, even when you're not on the mats, even when you're not in the cage, even when you're not in the ring. It's what you do outside of that that's more important. So it's a form of education, it's a form of schooling, and that's one of the biggest things that I try and teach my guys day in, day out.
Yeah. Well, you've adjusted very well. Adjusted being in respect, you've done this for a long time in a coaching manner, but I guess now it's taking up a lot of your time, a lot more of your time. And like you just said, you know, you're at the pinnacle now. There's no effing about here. We got to go, and we got to go strong. And you've got a window, and all these words start to come into, you know, play where your students and your fighters have to, you know, make the most of it. You know, how are you as a coach? You know, I've seen footage of you on the side of the ring. You know, you've got, you know, let's share with most people, and I'm sorry if I bring it up to this extent, but you know, for those that weren't aware, Sam was coaching Jimmy Crute a year or two ago, pre-COVID, and was having a heart attack during the bout. I mean, you know, that was gestured on the UFC doco that came out last week as well. I mean, what the fuck, you know, like, you know, that you've raised the bar in that as well, where we almost lost you.
Yeah, look, I'll be honest, there's no hero about me. I'm not a hero. I don't treat myself as a hero. But one thing I will say is, anyone who's trained under me, or anyone who's worked with me, I'm a very loyal person. And when you go to war and I'm your coach, I come to war with you. And I don't stand behind you, I stand beside you. And it's one of the things I've always professed, and I always do. Yes, I was having a heart attack at that particular time. Was I 100% sure I was having one? No, I wasn't. But, you know, I was cramping, my arms were sore, but I was so determined to get him through this. It was a title fight for him. It was something that he dreamed of, you know, for a long time. And for me to walk away, it was just unheard of. I wasn't going to do it. I wasn't going to do it at all costs. And but I knew it was my time. Once we had won it, I jumped in a car straight away and drove myself to the hospital. So, that was the first of many. You know, I had two. But irrespective, that's a form of loyalty that I have, not just with Jimmy, but just with all my guys, irrespective of what level you're fighting at, whether it be local level, amateur level, professional level, international level, it doesn't matter. If I don't show those signs of strength, if I don't show those signs of resilience, what do I expect my students to do?
Right.
So,
right.
So hopefully, you know, it's a lesson. I'm not saying, hey, look, have a heart attack, keep going.
No,
No, that's not what I'm saying. You know,
I don't think so.
that was just me at that given time.
Yeah. No.
It'll go down in history for it. But at the end of the day, I had to do what I had to do as a teacher, as an instructor, as a father figure, as a mentor.
How are your flashbacks going, Sensei, with what's happening now? And the flashbacks meaning of the competition, the fucking walking out the other week with the amount of crowds around you. I mean, shit, did you put the fucking gloves on for a second and just start to, you know, how does it feel?
Can I tell you, I'm like a kid in a candy store. When we're out the back and they tell us, you know, 10 minutes to go or 5 minutes to go, Jimmy's moving around. Fucking, I'm moving around too. I'm bouncing around, you know, as if I got a fucking crack up the ass. It's just unbelievable. And I'm eyeing off his opponent too, as if I want to knock his head off.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the team in me. That's the go in me.
Yeah.
You know, walking out in front of crowd, it was, mate, the atmosphere was absolutely fucking insane.
Yeah.
In Jacksonville, 15,000 sold out. It was sold out ages ago before it started, but it was absolutely insane. And I think it was, I honestly feel that we felt that way because we haven't been in front of a crowd for the last 12 to 18 months. That's all it was. But given that crowds, that's a small crowd compared to what I fought in. You know, I fought in front of hundreds, you know, nearly 70,000 plus. Yeah, you know, Japan, so I know what crowds are all about. So that's minute compared to what I come out with. But having said that, it felt like 100,000 people, you know, and it revs me up. It absolutely revs me up. It gives me those nerves, those butterflies. It G's me up and just makes my boy, you know, as a team, it makes us want to do really, really well, you know?
Yeah. How do you go with your language as a coach towards that moment? You've been through so much, you've seen so much. You're on edge as well, you know, with your, you know, adrenaline. That balance, and I guess, you know, because you're getting that opportunity to share with our listeners what you do and how you manage it.
Well, I'll be honest with you. You know, I've just mentioned about, you know, having butterflies and being nervous. I don't show that to Jimmy. I do not show it to him. I'm very composed. I'm very mature about it. You know, we sit down, we talk about. I always, you know, an hour or two leading into the event, we sit down at the back before I even wrap his hands. You know, we just talk about stuff that we've done without getting too edgy about it. We talk about, you know, the good times, the bad times, and we talk about different techniques and people, and we have a laugh and a joke around. Good. And I sort of blend that in leading up to when I start taping his hands. When I start taping his hands, about an hour out or 40 minutes out, right, is when we start to lock in and things start to get really serious. And my whole tone of voice changes. Yeah. It goes into, you know, to master mode. And he starts to feel it, and I can see it by, you know, he starts getting goosebumps. So, you know, I feed it in slowly. So basically what I try and do with my fighters is reassure them that what they've done to date, good, bad, through the good times, through the bad times, through the days where you've been sick, through the days where you didn't want to fucking go training and I had to get you up, through the days where you had to get out on the road and do road work and whatever it may be. You know, through all those times, look where we are today. An accumulation of all that stuff gets you on that pedestal. It just doesn't come overnight. There's no such thing as fucking luck. You make your own luck. Yeah. So I reassure my guys, you know, but one of the biggest things is I never say to my guys, go out there and kill him. Never. I always go say to my guys, with a smile, I always grab and put my head on their forehead and say, mate, look at me 1 minute. He looks at me square in the eyes and says, mate, do me a favor. Go out and enjoy yourself today. Do what you do best. Yeah. Yeah. Because that's when you're most dangerous. My boys are most dangerous, or my fighters are most dangerous when they're relaxed. If they're relaxed, they'll take your head off. You know. Yeah, good call. If they're not relaxed, well, you probably be able to, as an opposing opponent, you know, you'll probably be able to read them a lot more. But when they're relaxed, they're very hard to read. So, and that's what I try and drum in all the time. It's not even about the crowd either. You know?
How good. Thank you for sharing that. That's pretty special got goosebumps just listening to it there, Sensei. That was pretty cool. Hey, I was fortunate to have Dan Kelly on a couple of weeks ago. Appreciate your gesture there. You have to work closely with to help support, what the end goal is.
Well, look, I was fortunate to have Dan part of my team when I was fighting MMA.
Right.
He was one of the guys responsible for helping me out, during those times through sparring and technique work also. So we're a really good, strong relationship, and Dan and I sort of joined forces in terms of the coaching aspect with our MMA fighters. He's with Jake Matthews and I've got Jimmy Crute.
Yeah.
But no, look, it was really good because it made me really understand what judo's about, the type of techniques that are involved, and what is required. In the MMA scene, goes into the intricate, why, the what ifs, goes into all that. And he's amazing. I mean, his knowledge of the MMA game is purely MMA. It's not jiu-jitsu. It's not judo. It's MMA. We know that jiu-jitsu on its own doesn't win MMA fights. We know wrestling on its own doesn't win MMA fights. Kickboxing on its own. We're very fortunate enough. We bounce off each other really, really well. We're old school, but with new elements, if that makes sense. We're tough with our guys. And like I said to you previously, our guys know they have to fucking put in the work, because if they don't put in the work, they don't make the cage, they don't make the ring. Simple,
Yeah.
But I'm very fortunate to work, with one of Australia's elite judoka, guys.
No, you nailed it. You've nailed the conversation, the old school with new elements. It's fantastic to hear that. And it's always such a pleasure and honor to speak to you, Coach, and Sensei as well. It's such a privilege. And again, for those, Sam's in Sydney, excuse the internet as such, but we've done our best here. Thank you so much for your time. If you've got any words to anyone, because you're still in isolation, but please go for it. But if not, thank you so much for your time once again.
No, thank you, Patrick Us, mate. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak openly.
Yeah.
I hope the viewers enjoy. But if any of the viewers have got any questions, they can go to my Instagram or Facebook page, but Instagram on Sam Greco _K1. Feel free to send me off some messages. Ask me whatever you want. I'm pretty open book. Irrespective of whether you're a student of mine, a fan, whatever, I pretty much will give you the same advice. Yeah.
No, if you can catch Sam when he gets the questions on Instagram, get in quickly, because there are some absolute crackers and it's a fun at the moment there. Coach, Sensei Sam, thank you so much once again. Congratulations to you, your team.
Thank you very much once again.
Yeah, and congratulations to you and your team and everything else that's happening. All the best for the next 5 to 6 days in ISO. To the listeners, I'll put this up, and be sure to contact Coach and go from there. All the best. Big us to you. Us.
Us. Take care.
Thank you.